You can't treat white people differently. That's racism. That's not how that works, stupid.
In today's video, we're taking a look at an important conversation that's been happening across social media. Asian people speaking up, sharing their truth, and rejecting the pressures and expectations of white supremacy. More and more creators are opening up about identity, healing, and learning to love themselves without apology. Their voices matter, their stories matter, and these conversations are sparking real change in communities all over the world. This video highlights those powerful moments. Asians who are choosing self-love over assimilation, connection over silence, and courage over fear. These creators are talking honestly about how white supremacy has shaped their experiences, and why rejecting it is an act of self-preservation and collective empowerment. Now let's take a look at some Asians who are sharing their feelings on the topic. As you watch, feel free to drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective helps keep the conversation growing. And if you're new here or enjoy content like this, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so we can keep amplifying these important voices.
I'm gonna rant a little about Asians who want to be white so bad. I was having a conversation with someone the other day and she went to a gathering, right? These people are Asian, right? But there are two white guys. Someone brought the Malona ice cream. The girl, who's Asian, goes, "Ew, is it an Asian ice cream?" And then she'd make comments like, "I wouldn't know because I don't have an Asian friend." She made another comment that said something like, "This feels like a whole bunch of Asians playing with two super smart white guys, playing a word game." Some shit like that. It's so cringe seeing Asian people try to cater to white people. Asian people act like proximity to whiteness makes them superior. You can literally feel the energy shift when someone has internalized racism. It's this weird mix of embarrassment, superiority, and "I'm not like those other Asians" vibes. And honestly, it's painful to watch. I've seen it so many times. Some Asians act like the second they get a white friend group, they level up in the social hierarchy. Suddenly, everything Asian is cringe or weird or low tier. And you know what's the funniest part? They'll distance themselves from anything remotely Asian like it's toxic, and then they will over cater to their white partners or friends. Do you hear yourselves? It's like watching someone actively shrink themselves to fit into a box that was never built for them in the first place. Look, I get it, alright? A lot of Asians grow up being praised for assimilation. A lot of us are raised to believe whiteness equals safety, opportunity, acceptance. That's literally how internalized racism works. But acting like being white adjacent makes you superior to your own culture. Acting disgusted at your own food, your own features, your own background. It's not about hating anyone. It's more about calling out a pattern that harms all of us. Because when you look down at your own identity, the world learns to do the same. So yeah, Asians who think being white makes them better, just know that the rest of us see right through that.
I have no doubt that Danish deception guy can scam more money in China, and apparently he did have victims in Shanghai, because you'll be shocked to find out how many Chinese people worship whiteness, specifically putting mediocre white men on pedestal. I'm saying this because I used to be one of them. Okay, this is so embarrassing to admit, Beyonce, please forgive my sin. But looking back, aside of my people-pleasing and savior complex, being seen with a white man really did make me special in the way that I probably wouldn't feel if I'm with an Indian, Asian, Black, or any other man of color. And I think this is connected to the message we received as we grew up. You know, back then, all the leaders of all industries are white people, and all the Hollywood movies, TV shows we watched are filled with white faces. So without even realizing it, the sense of white supremacy is already subtly ingrained in our heads. And you can see this effect in the East Asian beauty standards. All the girls like high nose, double eyelids, and really white skin. And it makes me wonder if the media we consumed as kids told us that Indian girls are the standard of beauty, would there still be so many girls who would go extreme to harm their bodies to white their skin? Another really sad thing to see is that in China 2025 you can still get colonial treatment. Like if you walk into a bar or restaurant where there are a lot of like Westerners, you will notice how better they treat white people than they treat Chinese people. In Chinese we call this type of people 香蕉人, banana people. You're yellow on the outside but you're white inside. Mentally, spiritually, you so want to be white. But as they say, you live and you learn. I really hope more Chinese people and other Asian people, let's stop putting mediocre white men on pedestal.
I find this comment so interesting because it's simultaneously like kind of right but then like really wrong. Because yes, personally growing up in Australia and experiencing internalized racism, I have spent like a lot of my life seeking white approval. This led me to think about the link between Asian products and white approval. There's definitely a pattern of things that are deemed uncool until white people say that they're not. Especially speaking about the Asian experience, a lot of like the food we have, the hobbies we enjoy, the the toys that we had growing up, they were considered cringe and weird and strange. And I understand a lot of that is just like, you know, kids growing up and kids being mean. But the 180 that's been taken is actually quite extraordinary. I always remember going to school and I brought in something with red bean in it. And someone's like, oh, that's disgusting. I would never eat that weird meat paste. Or how matcha has evolved from weird grass drink to like this really cool health gut food or whatever. So I work in fashion, and I remember when that weird girl aesthetic came along that was spearheaded by Bella Hadid. I found that really interesting to watch on because it takes so heavily from Tokyo street style culture and Harajuku fashion. And even though in the name it suggests that things are avant-garde and are original and a bit weird, it's still cool and aspirational now that someone who isn't Asian, I guess, is embracing it. And then again, like Miffy, you know, I'm a massive Miffy fan. I have been literally since I was a child. And then in around 2021, Miffy and her kind of realm of characters like Hello Kitty, etc., have been more accepted into the mainstream. I used to have a chip on my shoulder about being called cute. Like, I remember growing up as a teenager, I'd always be called cute and never pretty or beautiful or even like, God forbid, hot or something like that. Asians are really seen through this cute, kawaii kind of occasionally condescending lens. But I guess as Miffy has entered the mainstream, and yes, I know she's Dutch, I don't think white people have had to face a kind of the same accusations of being like babyish and childish and not being taken seriously. The list could really go on. Like, this extends to beauty, to a lot more of the food industry, to hobbies, to even things like K-pop, anime. I don't really know how to word this, but I think I'm just like held up by the fact that there's something about how Asian hobbies and interests need to be accepted and approved by white people to be considered mainstream and normal. I remember talking to so many friends about how they find bubble tea and hot pots so weird, and especially like the pearls in bubble tea. But now, like every woman and their dog loves boba. It's almost like people weren't giving these things a chance unless this recommendation came from the mouth of a white person. So yeah, like the person's comment that they left about how Asians should stop, you know, worshipping white people. It's like, well, maybe create a system where we don't actually need the approval and validation of white society to be able to thrive.
When it comes to dating, there's Asian guys that only date white girls. And if you're one of those guys, dude, I got some news for you. If you think the reason why you're doing it is just because you find the white women attractive, I'm sure that's part of it. You know, there are beautiful women of every race. But there's a thing where Asian guys that only date white girls, it comes down to the same reason there are some Asian women that only date white guys. It's internalized racism. And I'm speaking from experience because in my 20s, when I started dating out of my race, I don't know, I tend to hold shit when I'm filming videos. There was a period where I was really fixated on dating white American women. It sounds very cringe to even say that out loud, but it came from a place of feeling like, number one, I was not viewed as attractive in the general dating market as an Asian guy, so I felt like to prove myself, I had to date women that belonged to the majority group in the United States. Fundamentally, there is internalized racism, there is white worship, and it is a very real thing that happens in the Asian American community, both with men and women. So, if you're an Asian guy that only dates white women, unless you literally grew up in the Midwest and all your friends were white and you only knew white people, I would say there's more at play than you just having a preference. It's very possible that you might be programmed to believe that you need to date white women to be viewed as a confident, attractive guy, and you're doing that as a way of validating yourself as an attractive man.
For context, I am Chinese American, and let me just be real for a second, okay? Why do some foreigners, not all of them, just some, okay, look down on Chinese people? Because honestly, I feel like we train them to. Like, think about it, okay? In China, we treat any foreigners like royalty, especially white guys, okay? A random white dude can walk in to China and suddenly he's Prince. Eat hot pot, viral. Drink bubble tea, viral. Say ni hao, holy moly, superstar. Our media put them on TV like they're gods. And why? Because we grew up hearing this brainwashing, foreigners are so polite. Foreign countries are paradise. Foreigners are better than us. So of course people act super insecure around them. Meanwhile though, Western media, non-stop, China bad, Chinese people rude, Chinese gross. They demonetize us every single day, so while China's busy kissing us, they're busy dragging ours through the mud. Then we act super surprised when Chinese people get bullied overseas. Like, come on. And look, I'm not saying hate foreigners, okay? By no means am I saying that. I'm saying stop worshipping them. Treat people normally, okay? And demand the same respect back. If you agree, comment and share and follow.
Honestly, yeah. And it's really unfortunate and really embarrassing and shameful that Asians do crave that proximity to whiteness so badly that we're willing to not be in solidarity with other BIPOC or black, queer, brown folk. Like, it's... we can always boil things down to like childhood and upbringing, but I like to always say, like, this is what I kind of learned in therapy, like, once you're an adult and you realize you have free will and you realize you have the agency to unlearn, relearn, like unpack and discover life, that you start to realize how fucked up it is that we want that and we crave that proximity to whiteness. Like, I will say that is oftentimes with a lot of Asian Americans that I meet, East Asian Americans specifically where I'm speaking from, but like in my experience, I questioned this at such a young age, and I think that's because I didn't grow up in I grew up in a predominantly white space, but then when my parents got divorced, we ended up moving to like a lower income area, and I went to school with primarily black and brown and like Hispanic folk, and everything changed when I was around other people of color, honestly. Like, when I was just around white people, I did want to like look white, feel white, act white, and like, you know, everyone back then, I remember Twinkie was a thing. And then when I moved to like the different neighborhoods, and also then I moved to LA because I'm from DC, and then I like moved my life over here, and I have not gone back to the East Coast. I'm never gonna live on the East Coast again unless it's like New York or like possibly Miami, but I want my Spanish to get better first. But it's our responsibility as a community to be better and to do better. And I oftentimes find it so disheartening and so disappointing in my own community. Like, let's just recap this year alone. Like, Kevin and his goddamn blackface, the purple YSL blush situation, and all these Asian creators felt like they had so much fucking right to say it's a brightener. But no, it's a fucking blush. Yes, you can use it as a brightener, but that's not how it was marketed, and they missed the whole fucking point with what other black creators were saying. The Euphoria Foundation, oh my god, I just spit. The fucking UTI podcast, Esther, like, I honestly think this is like a kind of like a direct contrast in Asian Americans, like their stereotype growing up. I remember everyone always thought that I was supposed to be so smart because I was Asian, and I was just born with these genes for math, but I'm fucking dyslexic and I have ADHD and other neurodiversities that I don't really care to qualify on here or like to surmise on here. But like, I think the contrast of us being this stereotype of like smart, academic, overachievers has now, we've like slid into like the opposite end of like boba, raving, ABG culture, and like, and even then ABG like they don't, like a lot of people who reference themselves as ABGs, or like people who say they want an ABG baddie, they don't even know where that like term comes from originally, and it has like a dark not a dark history, but it had kind of but yeah, I don't know, whenever I read comments like this, it makes me so freaking sad, because like for me, I don't identify with this craving of whiteness. I live in the Bay Area, and it's like a predominantly Asian place and white place. But I remember 10 years ago, this was like a much more diverse community. But I adamantly stay away from the marina. I don't go to North Beach. I stay in the Mission. I stay in the Castro. I stay in San Jose and Oakland. Like, I'd rather die than be pregnant, and I also rather die than go to the marina. Like, I don't know what else to say with that, but yeah. I just want the community to be better. And we're so stuck in our own politics because all of us, the only thing we care about is fucking representation for some reason as like the pinnacle hallmark of anti-racism against Asians in this country, but I digress. Asian Americans need to do better. That's why I started my decentering whiteness thing in the first place, but now everyone's just commenting Oxford study, Piccolo study, fucking mail truck study. I don't know, there are mail trucks in front of me, but it's really hard to like be Asian and exist to do the work to unpack because people still are going to accuse us of siding with the whites or siding with whiteness. I don't know where I was going with this video. This ended up turning into a rant. If you made it this far, I don't know what to tell you. Go watch Arcane.
I cannot date another Asian guy personally because he'll just remind me of like a potential brother, like a family member. I don't know, like I feel like that's weird. What are we talking about? Why have I only seen like Asian women use this argument? Do you think other races that date each other are like dating their sibling or something? What? Listen, I hate the Oxford study comments, okay? I hate them so much. But at the same time, I can't lie, they're low-key right though. And actually, statistically, like US Asian women are more likely than Asian men to date outside their race. Like, god damn! This is such an internalized racism thing, and it's kind of reaching weird proportions. I do think it is influenced by our society. So, you know, sometimes I can't blame them fully because I'd say Western media has, you know, kind of over-sexualized Asian women and then desexualized Asian men. But I wish for all my sisters out there to fight against the internalized racism, please, because you're making us look so bad. And it's like, I'm not saying don't go date the white guy. Go date the white guy, right? But please do not let me see another video that's like, I'm a proud victim of the Oxford study. Yeah, raise your hands if you're like me. Please, please.
If you're Asian, particularly Asian male, this is something that you guys need to stop doing. So occasionally I'll come across content where there's an Asian guy that's partnered with an attractive white woman, and I'll go to the comments and I'll see comments typically from other Asian men saying things like, oh my god, great job, bro. I just stood up and applauded for bro. Like stuff like that. And usually the Asian guy is pretty attractive himself. So what exactly are they applauding here? It's not the fact that an unattractive guy was able to bag a hottie. No, so they're applauding the fact that this Asian guy was able to bag a white woman. And this is really toxic and destructive. When they say that, when you make those comments, you're implying that white women and white people are superior and somehow inherently more valuable than women of other races. I don't really see these types of comments happening when attractive Asian guys are dating women of other races. Yeah, that's really colonialism at work in your hearts. That's really a colonial mentality. So I just wanted you guys to be aware of that. Like, please stop. Don't make those kinds of comments.
Oh yeah? How's bootlicking going for you? When has going high when they go low ever benefited us? No, when they go low, we go lower. It's not even really lower because you can't be racist to a white person. It's physically impossible to be racist to a white person. They are the dominant majority in this country. Trump is president. We're getting deported. They're enjoying their cocktails. Nothing that we say can ever harm a white person. It might hurt their feelings. It might make them angry. But they've never given us that same consideration. Also, calling them very white wouldn't be an insult if white people as a whole acted sane. Because if someone calls me very Chinese or very Asian, I'm like, hell yeah. That's a compliment. I'm so fucking Chinese. When people walk all over me, I take my boot and I put it on their neck. I'm Chinese, so I smell like jasmine flowers and not like popcorn chicken like these white guys. And how are you gonna earn their respect? You're gonna earn their respect by out-dominating them. Why do you even want their respect? They don't respect you. They're never going to respect you. The least you can get them to do is to leave them alone. I'm gonna guess that you're a very young Asian woman. You're not even showing your face on here. You're just raising a little daisy to the sun because you're just so pure and innocent and you don't know what the real world is gonna treat Asian women like. Good fucking luck out there.
I'm not sure why, but I actually do agree.
So I agree with a lot of this video. I felt many of the same things that this creator felt growing up. However, I don't think it's just Asians, I think it's everyone in general. When Asians or any person of color is looking for validation or trying to be like white people or white men, we're obsessed with them. But the thing is, our entire culture revolves around being like white men or white people because that's what we are conditioned to believe. This is especially true in the gay community. I've heard many Asians say, I'm just trying to prove to the white man that we are attractive. We need to start finding validation within our own communities and supporting each other and showing each other that we as Asians by ourselves are attractive. Unfortunately, media and everything around us has constantly told us that the epitome of desirability is being white. So we need to help change that. Society has made us believe that they're on a pedestal. It's really hard to unlearn things that we have been conditioned to believe since childhood. It's a struggle, and I'm still learning today, but I hope that we can work together to change that. That's where I think our obsession comes from.
Why are we being racist? Racist towards who? Old Man Coyote? You can treat white people differently. That's racism. That's not how that works, stupid. I would love to break this to you, so here we go. It is impossible for a person of color to be racist towards one another or to a white person. Racism is something exclusive to white people. Only white people can be racist. The word you're looking for is prejudice. Can a person of color be prejudiced towards a white person? Yes. Can a person of color be prejudiced towards another person of color? Yes. A lot of Asians are prejudiced towards black people because of xenophobia, because of colorism, and surprise, surprise, because of white supremacist propaganda. Prejudice, however, is completely different from racism. Racism is systemic. Racism is tied with colonization. Racism is tied with slavery. Racism is tied together with generations upon generations upon generations of classism and supremacy that only benefits white people. Why do you think it was harder for Muhammad Ali to change his name than Bruce Jenner to change his gender? Take the colonizer history you've learned and throw it in the trash. Relearn the real history of the people to fully comprehend the definition of racism. With all that being said, I want to make something really fucking crystal clear for you. When you see me or any other person of color treat white people differently or say shit like white people can't be trusted, that is not prejudice, nor it is racism. Bitch, that's called being careful.
To the Asians that are still bending over backwards for white acceptance, what has it gotten you? You guys got rid of affirmative action and now we are not getting into top universities at the same rate that we used to, but when affirmative action was still a thing. Our elders were getting beat up in the streets during COVID. Did you having a white husband stop that from happening to your mom? Some of y'all made that shitty fusion cuisine and put strawberry in matcha. And now the white people really like it. And our food costs way too much. There's a matcha shortage. The colonizers are looking at ube now. They're trying to bulldoze Chinatowns across the nation. And your white husband is still gonna cheat on you when you have a baby and he finds a younger Asian woman. Your kid still doesn't have blue eyes. Your kid still has brown hair. What has it gotten you? What has this house servant mentality gotten you, gotten your family, gotten your community? I get that you feel better than other Asian women. I get that you feel like you're prettier, smarter, more accepted than Asian women like me who don't choose to do those things. But you're not even getting paid for waiting around in H Mart waiting to help a white person find Asian groceries. Please move out of the way. I'm trying to get my chicken feet here. Oh yeah. And what has voting for Trump personally done for you?
There's an ongoing joke that half white, half Asian children tend to have an Asian mom and a white dad. And I thought it was really interesting that there was a phenomenon in the mid to late 1800s to the mid 1900s where that trend was actually the opposite, and there were a lot of children born to Irish mothers, specifically Irish, and Chinese fathers. Part of this had to do with there were Chinese students coming to America to go to schools like Harvard and Yale since the 1800s, which I literally can't even imagine. Like, we are always like given this image that like Asians haven't been in this country for that long, and if they were only here for like temporary labor. But there were people who came to this country for education 200 years ago. Sorry, maybe almost 200 years ago, because it was towards the later half of the 1800s. And the children born between the relationships with these Chinese men who came over to America with Irish women were subject to a lot of fear and apprehension. Here's one cartoon image where it's like supposed to depict an Irish woman talking to her half Chinese children and using some kind of like pidgin English, and is like, "Oh my god, run home to your pappy, we've got some puppy pie left over." Like, for dog eating, was that early? That's crazy. The term half caste came from colonial India, where children born between British parents and Indian parents were called half caste in a derogatory way. But there were also instances of this fear of miscegenation between Anglo-Saxons and Asians, particularly Chinese and Japanese, due to the prevalence of their populations in America compared to other Asian ethnicities. And in these instances, they would call them a mongrel breed because they were likening them to dogs and lesser than. And part of the fear of Asian immigration at this time had to do with the banning of transatlantic slave trade, which they feared that because they could no longer bring people in from Africa, that now Asians would replace them as the cheap labor, and maybe they wouldn't be enslaved, but it would be a threat to white laborers because they would be able to do the job faster and for cheaper. Meanwhile, at this time as well, there were European incursions into China for the first time. I think what we often forget is that for a lot of Asian history, at least like East and Southeast Asian, there is this notion of Sinocentrism, where China is the center of the world. It literally comes from the name, 诸国, which is like center of the universe. And so at this time, China's facing a reckoning of realizing, hey, maybe we're not the center of the universe and all-powerful because we've literally lost 2 wars to the British because they fed opium into our population, and now they're demanding all sorts of territorial and monetary demands. And then this kind of goes into intellectual history, but the ideas of social Darwinism didn't stay just in Europe, and people did translate those and learn about them in other continents. So in China, at least, there were a few thinkers who would look at that social Darwinism and that placed white people at the top and were worried about China's place underneath. They're like, okay, so we're not the whites at the top, but we don't want to be treated the same way that they treat darker. I can't do finger quotes at this hand, but they would be scared about them being treated the same way as the darker races, and so therefore they worked on trying to approximate themselves towards whiteness and thereby avoid that same level of harsh treatment. Some people actually believed that they could use eugenics to this means, where they would advocate intermarriage between Chinese men and white women, so that the lower class of the white woman, they would usually marry lower class white women, would counterbalance the lower racial status of the Chinese husband. So it would be wealthy, intellectual Chinese men who they tried to get to marry lower class white women, so that they two would balance each other out and they would be able to have children born from that, which would be supposedly carrying the benefits of both races, which would do like the out balance between like the harsher character of Russians with the gentle disposition of Chinese, apparently, according to one person. And interestingly, this guy Zhang, hold on, let me find his first name. Okay, his name was Zhang Jingchen, and ironically, he was called Dr. Sex because the way he would advocate for intermixing of Asian and white populations to create the ideal person. That's eugenics. But yeah, he accepted intermarriage between Chinese men and women of color, but rejected, the quote, in turning to the question of non-white races, Zhang accepts intermarriage between Chinese men and women of color, but definitively rejects the idea of Chinese women, quote, lowering themselves, unquote, by marrying men of darker races. This gendered double standard derives from the patriarchal notion that a woman's status follows that of her husband. So as early as the 1800s, we can see Asians disidentifying with the quote darker races in order to try to find proximity to whiteness, and this idea of what this author I'm looking at the book Eurasians by Emma Jinhua Tang, which she calls the yellow-white proximity. And so because Chinese racial identity is somewhere between not white and like white, then they try to get themselves closer to whiteness in order to receive better treatment. And in order to become more proximate to whiteness, they would have to disidentify with other people of color. Now, aside from the eugenics, I also find that really interesting because you see that in the history in Asian America, where Asian Americans were somewhere between not white and not black, because America has a very strong racial dichotomy of a binary white and black. And early in Asian American history, with coming over with coolie laborers in the late 1700s and the 1800s, then you definitely see Asians being depicted as not white and therefore a threat and a fear, and you see all sorts of racist propaganda because of that. But towards the 1900s and definitely after the World War II, you see more of a definition of Asians from not white to being, more importantly, not black, and that enabled them to demand more equal treatment to whites than compared to Black Americans. And that was even used as an argument in the late 1800s as to why Chinese children in America should be allowed to go to school with the white children rather than the black children, because they would argue, our children might not be white, but they're not black, therefore, yeah, it's really messed up. But I think it's important to acknowledge this part of our history as well. There's a clear reason why, despite having a lot of parallels with Latin Americans and Black Americans in experiences, Asian Americans are regarded as the outlier in terms of people of color in America. And a lot of that has to do with our own community's disidentification with these other groups and choosing to try to pursue proximity toward whiteness. And that doesn't really work, because no matter what, at the end of the day, you're still not white and you're still not going to be treated as equal. And that's not to say there weren't outliers. There's plenty of Asian Americans who do identify with other people of color and find solidarity in that. There were even Asians in Asia who identified more with Black Americans than they did with white Americans. But across the board, it would be willfully ignorant of me to deny that this is an aspect of our history. And it's one that I really hope will see change coming forward, because even though there was just the overturning of affirmative action, which most Asian Americans did support affirmative action, they just found some random Chinese Canadian dude to sue for it. I'm hoping that seeing that affirmative action has actually, with overturning it, has seen a downturn in Asian enrollment. I'm hoping that this will be a wake-up call to the community, and maybe more people will start to realize that at the end of the day, they don't want Asians. They don't want any people of color, but at least when you have affirmative action, they can't legally not accept any. I don't know, I don't feel like I was that well spoken in this video, but I had a massive migraine yesterday, and I'm not feeling that great, but yeah.
I am a proud victim of the Oxford study. My future children will be products of the Oxford study, and I have no shame that I am just one of the reasons that the Oxford study exists, because they fear white men are my type. The colonizers are my type. I have been